So our first speaker today is Mark Bates. He comes up from Boston. He was a speaker last year, great guy. He runs Meta 42 Labs and has Metacast TV, and we are really, really excited to have him today. So please welcome Mark Bates.
There we go. Okay, well, good morning and welcome to Burlington Ruby Conf. I am Mark Bates, as these guys said. Just to dispel a quick rumor, that is not me. I am not Ryan Bates. So if you're expecting to hear the dulcet, soothing tones of Ryan, unfortunately, you have to listen to me. I apologize for that. So why the tuxedo, or at least why the half the tuxedo? There's a story why there's only half a tuxedo, but so last year I tweeted that as a traveling techie, the hardest part of packing for me is the electronics and not the clothes. So Mike Denemy, Mike Rye, where is he? Right back there, tweeted back at me, having seen you give a presentation in your Sunday best shorts and ironic t-shirt, that doesn't surprise me. And that was a direct reference to last year's conference where I did just that. So I thought this year I would class it up a little bit, and I got rid of the ironic t-shirt. So I think it looks good. So what we're going to talk about this morning, we're going to talk about getting better. Because isn't that why we're all here? We're all here to get better, right? And the impetus for this talk really starts about 3 years ago. I got an email from a person who worked at a company, this is the email, worked at a company that I had worked at previously. I've never actually met this person, as far as I know. I haven't actually met this person in person, but we've only exchanged emails over this one email thread. So he had started at this company and worked there for about 6 months or so, and then got caught up in a round of layoffs. And he was struggling trying to find another job because everybody was looking for rock star developers or ninja developers and ninja rock stars and rock ninjas and all sorts of crazy ass combinations thereof. And so he didn't know what to do. He was like, I'm reading some books, but I don't really know what I can do. Like, what can I do to get a better job? Like, how do I improve? And how do I become more desirable as a developer? So that's what I'd like to talk about a little bit here this morning. Ways that I think we can become better developers, things that I do in my day-to-day life that help me become a bit of a better developer and more desirable developer. But before we do that, I'm going to start with a very quick story. And the story actually has nothing to do with development at all. Instead, it starts with this band, the Monkees. So when I was 11 years old, the Monkees had a huge resurgence. First of all, are there any people here who don't know who the Monkees are? Raise your hand. One person, Tim? You're too young, you have no idea who the hell the Monkees are. I think when I was 11, you weren't even born yet. So anyway, they had a huge resurgence. Their TV show was on MTV. They were doing big tours. The very first concert I ever went to was the Monkees with Weird Al Yankovic opening. Amazing show. Hands down one of the best shows I've ever been to. And through my research of the Monkees, I stumbled across this band. I knew Mike was up to no good. He switched out my slides. Okay, this band, rather. Is anybody here who doesn't know who this band is? Okay, good, because there would have been severe beatings later. Anyway, so there's no way you can not hear about the Beatles when you read about the Monkees. And so I found the Beatles, and I instantly fell in love. And I thought, it was a spiritual experience for me at 11 years old to hear this band. And I thought, I want to be this band. I want to emulate these guys. I want to be the next John Lennon or Paul McCartney, because no one says I want to be the next Ringo. And so I was like, okay, I am going to play the drums. And my mother said, no way in hell are you playing the drums. So after long discussions and bartering, we eventually came down to the guitar. So I think she thought I was going to sit there and play like a little classical guitar and maybe sing little Carpenter songs and everything would be fine. Fast forward like 3 years and I had a drum set in my bedroom, a Marshall half stack. It didn't work out well for my mother. But it worked out well for me. So I went and I took some guitar lessons, and I took 4 guitar lessons, and then I quit. And I quit because the guitar lessons were terrible. I wasn't learning what I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn how to play, Day Tripper. I wanted to play the guitar solo to While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Screw the fact that Eric Clapton played it. I'm 11, I could be Eric Clapton, why not? And so I was sitting there and he was like, well, no, we're gonna learn scales and we're not gonna touch the guitar for the first 2 lessons and we're just gonna play 1 string when we do. And it was like, this isn't working for me. This isn't how I wanna learn. This isn't what I wanna learn. So instead what I did was I sat down with a stack of records, so again I'm dating myself, an actual stack of records, a Beatles Easy Guitar book, this one in fact, and I sat there and I played those records continuously. I wore needle after needle after needle on my record player. And I listened, I took in every single note, every drum hit, every guitar strum, every vocal, every lyrical line, every production technique. I read as much as I could. I played, I had the guitar book open, and that was all I did. That was all I did for a really long time. I played these Beatles songs. I wrote my own really terrible songs in emulation of the Beatles. And I did this for years and years and years. And if you don't believe me, the process looked a little something like this. And at times it looked like this when I was formal and doing a concert in my bedroom. And at times it looked like this on the front porch, just relaxing for the neighbors. And yeah, that is a mullet. I'm not afraid to admit that I had a mullet. And anyway, so fast forward about 9 years, and it came time to go to college. And I was telling Mike this story yesterday. I was a pre-law student at Suffolk University in Boston for about a year and a half, because you can imagine me as a lawyer. I'd be showing up to court like this every day. Can I handle your divorce? Sure, why not? Yeah. And so I said, this isn't working for me. If I'm going to spend this much of my parents' money and this much of my time, I want to do something I'm really passionate about. So I wanted to do music. So I applied to and auditioned to this school. This is the Liverpool Institute for Performing Arts in Liverpool, England. And it was started by that man. And so I flew over there and auditioned, and when I auditioned, I found out that there were 10,000 people applying for slots on the music program alone, right? Which doesn't sound too much when you think about normal universities. However, there was only 37 slots available on the music program. So I was one of 10,000 people trying to go for 37 slots, right? Those odds are not in my favor. I auditioned with 10 people the day I auditioned, and one of these people had been playing fiddle since she was 4 years old and touring around Ireland. She was amazing. Hands down, one of the best, better musician than I will ever be. And I thought, well, I did some very quick math. I said, okay, well, she's 1 in 10. I'm not gonna get in. It's impossible, right? Because if there's 36 people like her, 36 more people like her, I'm screwed. But somehow, miraculously, I did get in. And I didn't get in because I was a great musician, because I'm still not a great musician. I'm a pretty terrible musician, in fact. We can prove this later at a bar if you guys prefer. But 3 years after I started, I got my degree handed to me, again, by this man, which is pretty impressive for a guy who took no guitar lessons, right? Well, took 4 guitar lessons, right? To have Paul McCartney shake your hand, give you a diploma, and buy you a beer is an amazing way to conclude a journey that started with listening to Beatles records and, strumming out and having a mullet. So, there's the old joke, right? How do you get to Carnegie Hall? The answer is practice. Okay? So what does this have to do with becoming a better developer? It has everything to do with it, right? Being better is an achievable goal. I proved that. I started off by not being able to do very much on the guitar, and I was able to have Paul McCartney hand me a degree. That's achievable. I did that, right? It involved a lot of work and a hell of a lot of effort. That is the only cat slide. Or that's a dog. Damn it. Okay. It's my protest against the cat-loving community here. Sorry, the Ruby community is obsessed with cats. So anyway, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work. And for me, there were 5 different kind of tenets and what I used to become a better musician, to kind of get to that place. And these are them here, right? So it's iTunes, a place to showcase my music. Of course, that wasn't available then, but it is now. Performance, getting out there and performing my music for people helped improve me as a musician. Practicing, obviously, and that's how you get to Carnegie Hall. Networking is a huge part of becoming a better musician. And writing. The art of writing your songs makes you a better musician. So we can take these 5 tenets and we can apply them to our lives as a developer. Right? So these are the 5 different things that I think are very important in becoming a better developer. So we can start with coding. Right? Coding is the most obvious one. Always be coding. This, by the way, is the extent of my Photoshop skills. So if you're looking for a designer, just hit me up in the bar later. I charge an outrageous amount of money for that. Always be coding, yes. So, coding is the answer to how do you get to Google, right? And just practice. By the way, I gave this talk a couple weeks ago in Tel Aviv, and I said, how do you get to Google? And someone said, we're on the second floor. I was like, damn it. The joke only works if you're not in a building with Google, I guess, right? So how do we code? Like, where do we start coding in practice, to practice our craft of coding? Well, we can start by contributing to other people's projects. We'll talk about this in more depth in a little bit when we talk about GitHub as a resource for becoming a better developer. But building your own apps is a great way to do it. I know Steve is going to allude to this in his closing keynote tomorrow. The act of writing code just for fun, writing code for yourself, not for business, but to just grow and learn and become a better developer. I've talked to people about this before, and they said, well, I don't really have a project of my own to work on. And that's fine. You don't have to have your own killer project. You don't have to be the next Facebook, right? You can copy other people's apps. I do that all the time just for shits and giggles, right? That's the kind of premise of Michael Hartle's Rails tutorial, right? Is you write a Twitter clone. And so do that. As a musician, I would do that all the time. That's how I learned to become a musician. I was copying other people's songs, right? I was playing them. I was copying them. I wrote songs that were just like them. I can't tell you how many Beatles rip-off songs I wrote as a child, and even today as an adult. So build Twitter, build Facebook, right? The list is absolutely endless. Rip them apart, dissect them, try to figure out how they work, right? You're going to stretch your architectural skills, you're going to stretch your coding skills, you're going to get to play with new libraries, do different things, and it's all just for fun. Don't worry about it. Don't worry if it's terrible, it doesn't scale, it doesn't have to. It's just about the act of writing and coding. Right? Write some tests for an existing library. This is a really fun thing to do. So take one of your favorite gems, don't do Rails. Take one of your favorite gems, something simpler, right? Delete the spec directory or the test directory and start again. Right? It's a great exercise to delve into other people's code, understand it, practice your testing skills, and practice your coding skills. And then put it all up on GitHub. Put it all up on GitHub, let people see it, let people tell you what's wrong with it or what's great about it. But always be coding. That is definitely a very important thing. If you want to become a better developer, always be coding. So GitHub, or iTunes for the development world. I know it sounds pretty obvious, right? Oh yeah, GitHub is kind of the core to our lives these days. Yeah, but here's a really kind of unobvious thing about GitHub. Put it on your resume, right? Many people I talk to, as somebody who's been a hiring manager for companies in the past, and when I'm helping out clients, I often do a lot of hiring for my clients. When I'm looking at resumes, GitHub tells me so much more about you than a list of skills down the bottom or bullet points about what you did at your last company, right? When I go to a GitHub link, I can find out who you are as a coder, what your coding style is, what projects you like to work on, what languages you enjoy. I can assess your coding skills. I can see how you are as a member of the community. What are you saying about other people's work? Are you contributing to other people's work? What are people saying about your work? How are you interacting with your fellow developers? That's incredibly important. If I see two resumes, one has a GitHub link and one doesn't, the one without the GitHub link goes to the bottom of the pile. All right, so if you're looking to get past that first step of showing some of your resume, put GitHub right at the very, very top of your page, right at the very top of your resume. It's so much more important, right? Contribute. Contribute is the number one thing you can do on GitHub. It's a very important thing, right? Post your open source projects. Find those libraries that you do day to day, things that you use in your project, see if they can be extracted into a gem, and then push them up there. Get them into the world. Let the world see them, let the world play with them, let the world interact with them, and you'll get a lot of good feedback. You'll get people telling you whether you're doing a good job, whether you're doing a bad job or not. Right? If you don't have a project, I hear people say that to me all the time, I don't have a good project, I don't know what to code, my boss won't let me open source some of my libraries, that's fine. Simplest thing you can do is fix other people's issues. Go to the GitHub page of your favorite gems. I probably wouldn't start with Rails. And look through the issues. There's a million issues on GitHub, more, I mean there's gotta be millions, right? Find the one that you think you can fix and fix it. It could be something as simple as improving documentation. I know Zach, where's Zach? Is Zach here? Dude, really? Never. So improve the documentation of something, improve the README. All right? There's a lot you can do that people really, really love and they'll benefit from as other developers, and it'll enhance your GitHub profile. All right? It also helps to build your name. Right? Your name is a very important part of who you are in this community. Right? You want people to know who you are. You want to build that name because the jobs come with that. right? The bigger the name you develop in the community, the better jobs you're going to get. It also helps you to build your style, and style is very important. Every developer has their own style, and you can't develop a style unless you see other people's styles. As a songwriter, when I sit down to write a song, I'm heavily influenced by the styles of the musicians that I studied. Right? The first songs I wrote were absolutely terrible and they had no style, or they had way too much style from the Beatles because that's all I knew. I either didn't know anything or I only knew one thing. So by getting into other people's code, I'm learning other people's styles. I'm seeing how they use libraries, how they use the language, the things they're twisting and turning to make their code work. And you can incorporate all of that into your style. Right? You also get to work in other people's constraints. And that's really fun too. If you're working on somebody, you want to contribute to somebody's library, if they use test unit and you're an RSpec person, well guess what? You can't use RSpec. They'll reject your test. They'll reject your whole pull request because you brought in a whole new testing framework. What the hell's that all about? So you have to use test unit at that point. You have to write things the way that they do. Right? So you learn new things. You're constantly kind of growing and evolving in that way. So blogging. I think blogging is a very important part about becoming a better developer. Doesn't seem like an obvious part, but it is. Right? You should blog all of the things. I think, about a month or so ago, a friend of mine on Twitter said that every time he thinks about starting a blog, he doesn't know what to write about. He feels that everything he wants to write about is common sense to everybody else. And I think that's bullshit. Sorry, Luke. That's absolute bullshit. Right? What's common sense to you is not common sense to everybody else. There are other people in this room who have no idea how to do the things you think are common sense. So blog about them. Right? There's a lot you can blog about. It helps to improve your communication skills, and communication skills are incredibly important regardless of the industry you're in, but especially as developers. Right? Our documentation is incredibly important. We need really excellent documentation as developers so that other people can use our libraries and use our code more effectively. And blogging helps you do that. And as a hiring manager, I can go and I can look at your blog and say, oh wow, okay, this person really knows good technical writing. They have great communication skills. That's really important. That sets you above somebody else. Of course, don't look at my blog, 'cause it's barely updated. I've written 2 books though, so I think I can get off on technicality there. So do as I say, right? So what can you blog about? You can write about the projects you're working on. Ask permission at work. Can I, do a blog for the company and write about the dev stuff you're doing for the company if you don't feel you can manage your own blog. Write about the projects you're working on at home, those projects we talked about earlier that you're building. They could be the Twitter clones. Write about building a Twitter clone. What challenges have you run into? Where did you stumble? Where did you fall down? What do you think is happening behind the covers when someone hits submit on the tweet form? Right? Dissect other people's projects. Right? Go and find some of your favorite gems, not Rails, and dissect it. Dig into it. Figure out how it works. Right? There's lots of great gems out there. Just dig through them and say, oh, okay. Take for example Richard's mail down that he just released the other day. Dissect it. How does it work? How is he doing Markdown? You write one email in Markdown and it gets split up into a text email and an HTML email. How's he doing that? What's the process happening under the covers, right? You learn a little bit about Rails that way. You learn a little bit about gem writing that way. You learn Richard's style. It's a great way to do it. So then you can take that information and blog about it and say, oh yeah, I was looking at the mail down gem and here's how you would do multi-part emails in Rails. Right? Lots of great information there just waiting to be written about. So just write it. I can't stress it enough. Just write it. It's really important. Speaking. Speaking is very important, as you can tell. Yeah, I couldn't resist. I didn't really have anything to say about speaking. I just really wanted to put that slide up. So speaking is very important. So again, it helps with your name recognition. Right? There's 150 people here today, and 150 people today now know my name. Right? That's the quickest way. I mean, I just reached 150 people who may or may not have known me. Right? On Twitter, that's I can put these slides up on Twitter, but unless people are following me, it's going to be hard for people to find that information. Right? So now you all know about me. You're all going to go home and go, oh, Mark Bates is so awesome. You're all going to tweet about me. I'm going to get 1 million followers, and it's great. It's also a really, really great way to learn new topics. Right? It forces you to learn things. So I do this all the time. An example of this was last year RubyMotion came out, and within 20 minutes of RubyMotion coming out, I volunteered to do a talk at Boston RB about it. And I think 150 people, close to 150 people showed up to that talk. Right? So I needed to know RubyMotion. 20 minutes after downloading it, I had no idea how RubyMotion actually worked. So I set out and I wrote a bunch of apps, and I was like, what do people need to know to get started with RubyMotion? And I got myself to that point. So I'm like, great, now I know RubyMotion. I do this all the time. If you see me talk about a topic, chances are I have no idea what I'm talking about. Much like this. These slides were written on the walk over here today from the hotel. So, if you guys like my laptop. That's why I don't have any pants. It's like, I knew I forgot something. So you get to learn new topics, right? You also get to meet new people. And we're going to talk about that a little bit when we talk about networking. Meeting new people is incredibly important. And speaking is a great way to meet people because people want to talk to speakers. Because they feel that somehow speakers know more than they do, and that's not the case. But they will approach you and they want to talk to you and they want to meet you. It is also a great way to get free beer. No, seriously, it's an excellent way to get free beer. If you want to find out how you get free beer, find me later, buy me a drink, and I'll tell you all about it. So networking. This is our last tenant here. Networking. I just love that dude. So, is that a real painting? Is that an actual thing? Because that dude was way awesomer before his time. So one of the things that the dev community is known for is being introverted, which I think is kind of a misnomer. There are definitely plenty of people who sit in their mother's basement playing video games all day and screaming out for meatloaf and that whole thing. But there are nice extroverted people, but you need to be an extrovert. You need to get out there. Networking is key in any industry you're in. I don't care whether it's software, whether it's sales, whether it's, working at the Home Depot. You need to network. You need to meet people. That's very important. So be an extrovert. Get out there and talk to people. I see so many people at conferences. They sit in the back of the room with their laptop open and they're just doing this. And they're not paying any attention to the speaker. Right? And that's just, that is a terrible thing to do at a conference. So first of all, it's incredibly rude to the person who spent lots of time working on the slides, not me. Lots of time working on the slides. It's incredibly rude. This person is up there, they put all this time and effort into it, and you're just sitting there typing away, doing some work, checking your email, tweeting, whatever. Unless you're tweeting about me, then go right ahead. And that's just really, really rude. But you're also not getting anything. You spent a lot of money, or somebody spent a lot of money to have you be at the conference, right? Enjoy it. Go out and meet these people. I see them in the hallways, sitting out in the hallways, with their laptops open, headphones on, eating the boxed lunch that the conference provides. Like, what are you gaining out of that? I can watch all of these talks online in a few weeks thanks to Confreaks, right? You can watch these all online. So why are you here? Are you here for the sessions? Yeah, sessions are important. The speakers, what the speakers have to say is important. But for me, conferences are about the hallway track. They're about the bar track. They're about the bar track. Did I mention the bar track? Bar track, see the slide about the free beer. Right, those are all the best things. Like I had dinner last night with Zach and Steve and a bunch of other people. We had great conversation, right? And I got to know some great leaders in the Ruby community. And we had excellent conversations about different topics and things like that. It's very important, right? You can get your next gig out of these sorts of meetings. Right? I'll tell two quick stories. One, in 2008, I was at RubyConf. I got Obi Fernandez drunk in a hot tub. And came up with a book deal. So, by the way, I would not recommend ever getting Obi Fernandez drunk in a hot tub because bad things happen, clothes come off, it becomes an awkward scene for everybody. However, if you want a book deal, the pictures that come out of it are a great way to get one. So, I'd highly recommend that. So the other one is I was at RubyConf in New Orleans a few years ago. And breakfast. I show up on the first day, and there's some breakfast. There's muffins and scones and coffee in the lobby. And so I just walked up to a little table of people and said, "Hi, I'm Mark. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Do you do any libraries? What libraries do you do?" And I met a really great bunch of people. I met this one guy named Ben, and Ben was a local. And Ben was like, come on, well, I'll take you out for lunch, and we'll find I know a really great place that does awesome fried chicken in the French Quarter. And I was like, fabulous, love fried chicken. And so I grabbed like 10 different people, just random people. I was like, hey, you want to come with us? Hey, you want to come with us? I did it last night. I just grabbed some random people. I was like, hey, who wants to come out to dinner? We're going to a farmhouse. And so we went, and Ben was a really great guy, and Ben introduced me to a guy named Ross, and Ross then hired me as a consultant for 6 months, and I got to fly down to New Orleans every few weeks, and it was awesome. And I ended up being a mentor for a tech accelerator program down there, and it all started with me going up to a complete stranger and saying, hi, I'm Mark, who are you? Right? These are the things that happen. I had never met Obi Fernandez before, but I went up to him and I said, hi, I'm Mark. Nice to meet you. And that's how the whole thing started. Right? So these are very important. You also get new friends. Right? I now count Obi and Ben as friends. Right? And those are just two examples of the great Ruby friends I've met over the years, just by doing this, by talking to people, by being an extrovert. Right? And you might even learn something new. Many of people I've met, I've had great conversations with, and they've opened my eyes to different things, different techniques, different languages, different libraries. You walk out, you'd be surprised what it is you can learn when you're talking to the maintainer of a library that you might even use, or a library you've never even heard of, but then you hear it, but you go, God damn, that was exactly the thing I was looking for. So get out there and meet people. It is really important. So again, I think these are kind of the 5 things that as developers we can do every day, and they're free. And yeah, they do take some work, but you know what? Like half the work involves free beer, and that's not bad. And the rest of the work you can do while drinking beer, and that's also not bad. If you don't drink beer, the Skinny Pancake has organic root beers that they will try to mix with Jameson if you ask for Jameson and Coke. So I would not recommend that, though. But if you're like me and you really just want a shortcut, there is a shortcut out there. There is a great book you can read that kind of solves all of this for you and kind of just jumps you to the next level. And it's How to Honeymoo. Because if she can make it, you can make it. And with that, I want to say thank you to everybody for being here, and let's enjoy the conference.